Today we're talking about the brand new Viltrox 23mm f1.4, and we're going to see how it pairs with the M50, which of course is the only camera I currently have that you can pair with it, because my M3 broke, and unfortunately the lens is not compatible with the M1 and the M2. I don't know if they're going to try and update it in the future, but as of right now, it won't work. Now this is one of two lenses that Viltrox has just released. They released a 33mm and a 23mm, both f1.4, and I did a video on both of them last week. But this one I really wanted to dive into actually using these lenses with the M50, and I wanted to point out some things that I've figured out since I made that video. Problems with some of the automatic modes. I really have to thank my buddy Scott Waldron over on his YouTube channel. He got these lenses and figured out some of these problems that I'm wanting to share with you. Now, I wasn't able to replicate all of the stuff that he was dealing with, so if you have any other questions about these two lenses, go over to that video. He has a great comparison of them and shows a lot of the problems that he was suffering from. I did end up having a few problems with focus though. Basically, any time that I put the camera in a really extreme scenario, the lens gets confused on what it's supposed to be focusing on, and it sort of does this weird reset thing, or it'll just like focus on the closest thing, and it's not as intelligent as Canon's own lenses with the dual pixel autofocus. For the other problems that Scott was talking about, I suggest you go look at his video. For some reason I wasn't having all of the problems he was getting. It probably was just the situation he was in versus the situation I was in, so check out his video. It's linked above. Now, my experience with this lens on the M50 has actually been really good. Other than that focusing issue, which has only been a problem like once or twice. Hopefully Viltrox will fix that and rectify that problem. But other than that, this lens has been great. There are a few things I like on it better than the 22mm. One is the size. Now, I know a lot of people talk about the 22mm. It's perfect size for like just walking around, street photography type stuff. But when you're doing video, neither of these lenses are stabilized. And so the lens being bigger and heavier has actually been an advantage when shooting video handheld. Now this lens actually works pretty well with the digital stabilization. I'm using it right now. This is without the digital IS, trying to hold it as still as possible. And I found that it can give some really great results. Now where this lens really shines is where the M50 doesn't, and that is low light. I'm shooting at f1.4. This is how this same shot would look at f3.5, at f2, which is what the 22mm shoots at. This is the biggest advantage that this lens has over every other lens that I have used on this camera. Now, of course, for vlogging, the lack of stabilization and then the tighter focal length make it not as good for vlogging, but Viltrox is supposed to be releasing in a 13mm f1.4. I'm really excited about that, but as long as you're conscious about how you use this lens, you can still vlog on this 23mm. Since I got this lens, it has barely been off of my camera. I have used it so much for photos, which by the way, this is a great photo lens. I know I normally talk about video on this channel, but taking thumbnails, this is a great lens for it. For me, taking pictures of the family, this lens gives you the ability to take really beautiful photos. Low light B-roll, you can do it with this lens. Vlogging, you can do it with this lens. This lens is basically an alternative to Canon's 22mm. For video, I have actually liked this lens better. As I said, because of that weight, it's a little bit heavier, a little bit better for handheld video. The digital IS, I've actually thought worked better on this lens than it does on the 22mm. Now I'm going to do a direct comparison, comparing this lens to that lens in an upcoming video. But I have a lot of experience with that lens, and I have been very impressed with the way that this works. And not only that, but this lens has let me enjoy making films. The depth of field that I'm getting right now, the low noise level that I'm getting right now, the 35mm focal length is just so good. I know I've talked about the EF-50mm as being like the best second lens, but with that lens, you have to have an adapter. But this lens is a native mount. You don't have to use an adapter. You don't have to mess with that. For me, when I have a piece of gear that makes me excited to shoot video again, that's when I think a piece of gear is worth buying. Now, this wasn't a comprehensive review or a comparison between lenses. This was more of what it's like to shoot on this lens, what it's like to film B-roll, what it's like to film vlogs. I have had more fun using this lens than I have had in a long time making YouTube videos. If you want to check out this lens, you can follow the links in the description. There is one for Amazon down there, but if you buy this lens from the Viltrox store, right now you can get it 10% off by using the code Crowley10. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please give me a like, subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and I'll see you all in the next video.